everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be diving in to my physical TBR challenge, where every video I have to read at least one physical TBR book so I can knock off the whole list this year. So one of my other big goals this year was to kind of expand my genres, because I tend to read a lot of mystery and I wanted to expand that this year. So why not go for a very niche kind of underground genre like romance? So today I'm going to be reading 3 different romance novels. I am not a huge lover of romance. I have not loved it in the past, and yeah, so I have a few books that are on my physical TBR that I wanted to kind of tick off, and then as well, I just find I kind of get drawn into the plots. I know that I don't love romance, I just find them a bit, I don't feel like I get to know the characters enough to care, and there's not enough going on that makes me kind of stay interested, and I feel like the tropes and cliches are just too much for me, but I still get drawn in by like an interesting hook. So yeah, let's dive in and we can talk about the rom-coms that I read. So the first book I read is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is actually not a physical TBR book, but I listened to the audiobook of this. And this is the 4th Taylor Jenkins Reid book I read. I first read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I really enjoyed. Then I read Malibu Rising, which was good, but it didn't hit me. And then I read Carrie Soto Is Back, which is one of my favourite books. So I've had kind of an up and down relationship with Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this book, I was just so drawn in by the plot, or like the hook. I think it's such an interesting concept. So we follow Hannah, who is going back. She's been traveling around the world. She comes back to LA and she has kind of these 2 choices almost. She has this choice to reconnect with her old high school flame, or she can kind of not reconnect with him. And she has a life-changing event, I suppose, and we see dual perspective, dual timelines, where in one case she gets back with this guy and they have their moment when they didn't get to have it in high school, and the other she meets a new guy and they go through that whole romance. So it was a really interesting premise. I was really excited for it, honestly, as I always am with romances, because I feel like they have to have a really good hook to get you in, but I just don't think this did it for me. I think you can kind of definitely tell that it's very early Taylor Jenkins Reid. It doesn't have the same magic as her later books. And I really wanted to love it, but I just didn't care. I didn't love Hannah, the main character. I didn't really connect with her, and I didn't feel like this had the same magic as Taylor Jenkins Reid's older books. You can kind of see how her characters develop, because in her later books you connect to the characters like really quickly, and that's one of the things I used to only really read series because I loved kind of falling in love with the characters and getting to know them. And I just didn't find you got that as much in standalones. But with Taylor Jenkins Reid's later books, you definitely get that, where you just get immersed in this character's world and their mind. But with Hannah in this book, I just didn't care. I wish I did, but I just didn't. So that kind of sucked, because I was looking forward to the premise. They also just used fate and like, oh, it'll happen if it's meant to happen, for like the ultimate salve for everything, which a great motto and all, but it just felt a bit lazy. It was like anything that happened, they just went, oh, you know, fate, it's happening for a reason, it's fine, fate's gonna sort it out, I don't need to do anything. Using fate for everything, it just kind of felt like she was sitting in the backseat of her own life and letting things happen, and it just irked me a little bit. One thing I really loved though was that she was happy in both circumstances. Not to spoil, but at the end there's this great scene where her and her partner meet the guy that she was with in the other timeline, so you see that from both timelines, and that was really fun because it was quite funny because she met them in both timelines and she's going, oh my goodness, thank God I chose this option, or this guy. So that was really nice. It was nice to see that she was happy and thought she made the right choice both times. And I really find this quite overwhelming in my life, thinking about, you know, the tiny choices we make and how that massively affects your life, and how you're going to be in a completely different place just based on small decisions you make. I find that very stressful sometimes. So it was reassuring to read that. Obviously it's fiction, but it was nice to be like, okay, she's confident in both. But yeah, it was a lot of fun seeing that. It was a lot of fun seeing kind of the parallels, like what things happen the same and what things happen differently in the different timelines. And it was also interesting seeing that she didn't think that they would have gone the same if she'd done the other thing, even though they did. So that was pretty fun. But overall, I was just a little bit bored. I didn't feel like I connected with her very well. Yeah, and neither romance really, like, I didn't feel anything, you know, it was just a bit meh, but very cool concept. So yeah, this was like a 2.5, 2 3/4 star for me, but it could definitely be someone else's cup of tea. I do think it has dissuaded me from reading her other early works though. The next book I read was on my physical TBR, and that was Cobble Hill by Cicely Van Ziegelzar. I know I butchered that, I'm sorry guys. This is a book by the same author who wrote Gossip Girl. So I loved that show. I haven't read the book, but I loved that show. I thought it was just kind of a fun, like, cinematic. It was fun seeing the Upper East Side and all that. So I saw this in a secondhand bookshop and I was pretty intrigued. Also the cover's very pretty and it's a very nice edition. You know, it's a good floppy paperback. It has, you know, nice... I'm like such a sucker for a good like version of a book, but I had to pick this up. It was pretty and I just thought why not. So it was a lot of fun. It wasn't my favourite, but I honestly liked this book a lot more than I was expecting. I think it was definitely more of a slice of life book than a rom-com, but it focuses on 4 different couples in Brooklyn and their kind of interconnecting lives and just, you know, a little slice of their life. That's what a slice of life book is. But yeah, I rated it 3 stars, but it has stuck in my head. I think about it probably once a week. So the characters I definitely connected to. It's about 300 pages, so it's not super long, but the author definitely got us to kind of feel and connect with the characters, which was fun. The main character I could not get out of my head as Rufus Humphreys from Gossip Girl. He is like this washed up rock star who has this young kid and this wife who is just kind of, she was like a groupie and it just enjoys her life being his wife. But yeah, it was just quite funny seeing that that character kind of represented again. It was like, okay, this author really likes the washed up rock star dad kind of vibe. But I can't blame her, it was fun. And it was really interesting seeing all of the couples kind of interconnect. You know, there was little pieces, little breadcrumbs, where we got to see them meet each other, and it was fun seeing them from different points of view. You know, like the same character from different characters' points of view, and then from themselves, their own point of view. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. I will say there were some formatting issues which I didn't appreciate, which is when it changed perspective without a heading or anything. This has become something I've noticed more and more in books recently, and it is now one of my pet peeves. It drives me a little bit crazy because we're just cavalier shifting around people's POVs. If it's the same scene and we're all chatting, fine, I can get around that. But this is just like the same chapter, we're just bouncing from person to person, their own separate house and their own separate life. It was a little bit jarring, so I didn't love that, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit, but it's really not that big of a deal. I'm just trying to look for things to complain about, but it was an enjoyable book for sure. The only other thing I would say, which I hate in books, and I read another book recently, which for a different video, that also had this in it, and I just hate it. It just dings the book so much for me, which is like cheating tropes and people in relationships, like marriages, that are then like having these little flirty moments with other people. I mean, already I'm like, I don't really want to read about that, but fine. But then it escalates and then they just, I don't know, I don't love it. Then they kind of get into this whole thing where it's, oh, I'm actually in love with this person. What did I do with my wife? So that was just a bit, So we kind of saw that a little bit, spoiler, but it happens pretty early on, between the like washed up rock star guy and then one of the other couples was like one of his groupies back in the day as well. Or not groupies, but like a fan. They ran like a fan page or a fan blog, and then that person works at the school of the rock star's son. So it was kind of an interesting little, you know, intermingling, but it was just a bit annoying. I did not love that. But it was definitely an interesting read. I would honestly recommend it. I'm giving it 3 stars just because I didn't love it. And I was going to give it 4 stars, but then I'm looking at my other 4-star books and it just didn't seem fair. But it has stuck around. The characters were very well written and they were very, you know, fleshed out. So I think if you like slice of life books, if you want to read about some kind of interesting hipstery families in Brooklyn, then go for it. But yeah, I would recommend it. It was a great book. The last book I read was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, which was another physical TBR book. I picked this book up also pretty recently, but as I'm not a big romance reader, I had never read anything by Emily Henry. So I'd obviously heard of her and I've heard of this book, so I thought, we'll just give it a go. It was like $1. I thought, why not? And again, it was a really nice paperback, so I'm like, why not? I enjoy this more than I was expecting to. I think I give this 3.5 stars. I kind of read it at a good time. It's kind of a like slow burn, long, second chancey romance. So it follows two best friends who go on vacation every summer, and so we follow their current vacation, which is the first one in about 3 years, because there was this big kind of mysterious incident where they've had a falling out, and they kind of end up going on one last holiday together, and our female main character is trying to kind of win back the male main character and trying to rekindle the friendship. And then we get to go through the last, I think it's like 9 years of summer holidays where they go on a trip, and we get to hear about what happened, and it was really interesting. I actually really enjoyed it. I think the characters weren't amazing. Like they kind of had their quirks, and that was all that they had. The female main character Poppy, she's very quirky and kind of has these little isms, and then the male character Alex he's very strict and kind of, you know, wound tight and by the book unless Poppy's around. So that was fun, but I didn't love the characters, but I think it just kind of spoke to me where I am in life right now, and I just thought it was pretty fun. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. And I've also heard that this is one of her worst books. I'm sorry if you love this book, but just generally that this, like, she has better ones, so I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I'll read an Emily Henry, but I did really enjoy this, so I think I will probably pick up more from her, which is shocking because I was like, this is ready to be my end of romance reading. But yeah, I enjoyed it more than I thought. It was a fun journey seeing them come back together, and it was dual perspective, which I love, kind of seeing, you know, the little breadcrumbs of what each person thought, and I love seeing how, you know, different characters interpreted the same event and the same things happening, so that's always really fun. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. I read 3 different romances hoping to put the genre behind me, but it seems like I might have a new author of Emily Henry sneaking back in. Both of the books for my physical TBR I am going to be unhauling. People Meet on Vacation I did enjoy, but I don't think I'm ever going to reread this. It was a nice book, but yeah, it just doesn't have rereadability for me. And then Cobble Hill, I would see myself rereading more, but I don't think I would. I think it was just, it had its moment, I enjoyed it, but I don't think there's anything that I feel like I want to revisit, and there's so many other books that I would rather read or reread. So I'm going to be giving these both away to someone else to enjoy, and hopefully they do. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, consider hitting like or subscribing, and you can join me as I read through my physical TBR and unhaul as much of it as possible. Also leave me a comment down below letting me know what your favourite romance read is, and I hope to see you guys in another video soon. Bye!